Hey friends, it's harvest time here in the United States, September 2022. And every year this time of year, there's something I make that I've always wanted to share, and now I'm going to. It's actually a hops iced tea. Yeah, friends, it's my mom's old sun tea recipe. There's no heating the water, just the sunshine. And we spice it up a little with some other ingredients and definitely give it a pump up with some fresh hops cones. So without further ado, it's Max here from Hops World, and tip number 70 this week, hops iced tea, how to make it and how to enjoy it. Let's do it. Hey friends, welcome back to Hops World and today's tip on how to make hops tea. But before I get started, I wanted to talk about this tea here. It's lemon and ginger tea straight from the supermarket, and that's about what we're going to make. But we're going to make kind of a home craft style tea, and we're going to pump it up a little with a little mint and pump it up a lot with some fresh hops cones. But the point is, in the supermarkets today, if you go in, there are tons and tons of different hops with different flavors. Take a look at the ingredients on the side. If you look at this, it's a nighty night tea, and it says promotes a good night's sleep. And on the side with the ingredients, we'll zoom in here. If you look halfway down, hops strobiles. And all these other plants, ingredients, lemongrass and elderberry, and wow, the options are endless. So my point is, experiment, folks. Use hops as a kicker, as a boost, but experiment with the ingredients. Use different flavored hops, different kinds of hops, and put in the comments below the results, okay? But be careful, because hops can really bite if you put too many in your tea. So our tea today is actually my mom's recipe for a sun tea. And what that means is we don't cook the water, we don't heat the water at all. We use the sunshine to let the hops and the flavors of the tea and everything else mix together over a long period to come up with a nice iced tea the next day that you can drink while you're sunbathing by the pool, relaxing and enjoying the day. So I'm going to explain the ingredients we use per cup of water, but we usually make at least 4 cups, sometimes 8 cups. Keep that in mind. So we start off with a plain black tea, the most basic, with no flavors, straight from the supermarket. In Brazil, we have a sieve, and we get the black tea in a powder. You can get it that way too online, I'm sure. It's a little harder to get here in the US, but it comes nice and handy in a little tea bag with 1 tablespoon of black tea right in the tea bag. So that's what we use, 1 tablespoon or 1 tea bag of black tea per cup of water. A cup of water is about 250 milliliters for you metric people out there. Then ginger, we get fresh ginger, we peel the skin off, and we get a 1/4 teaspoon only of ginger per cup of water. Ginger is really strong, so if you put too much, it's going to overpower your tea. Lime. Get a nice lime, cut a 1/4 lime per cup of water is plenty. And then we put mint as an option. If we have it fresh in our garden usually. And if it's available, we'll put 2 leaves only of mint per cup of water. The idea is not to overpower the tea with these ingredients, because the most important ingredient that we really want to come out is the hops. So we use fresh hops cones. Now keep that in mind. If you don't use fresh hops cones, if you use dry cones or pellets, you use a different amount. You have to be really careful. You use a lot less than fresh hops cones. So at the end of the video, I'll explain that. But for us, we always make this tea during harvest season when we have fresh cones, whenever we have tea maker hops available. And we always try to use a hops that's low on alpha acids and it has some flavors, because this tea is made with cold water, so we're really trying to get them flavors and the beta acids that aren't going to burn off, that would typically burn off if you boil the water. So we use, in this case, it's Princess VV. It's our own variety. It's actually a Humulus lupulus pubescent variety, a wild plant from Missouri that was crossed with our Superboy male. And this plant has a lot of potential, I believe, for future possible commercial variety. The yields are enormous. The thing really took over the part of the trellis it was on. It needs a higher trellis. Our trellis is only 15 feet. But the cones is low alpha acids, 3 to 5%. But even with low alpha acids, this hops has great citricy flavors. It starts out lemony, but as you rub the cone, you get them oils heated up. The orangey and maybe even mandarin orange flavors and aromas definitely come forward. Cones are really compact, tight, medium to large, and there's some smaller ones. I don't say that's smaller compared to some of the ones I've seen in Europe. And a little bit pointy, but easily pickable. And I see these really going through a harvest machine really nice. So we're going to typically use a Hallertau Milterflue or a Sass or maybe a Fuggle or something with low alpha acids. You could try something with higher. Be careful, okay? Now you can use dried hops cones or even pellets, but you need to be careful because the amount that you use is going to be a lot less, okay? So at the end of the video, I'll explain that. But we use fresh hops cones, and we use basically 2 to 3 cones per cup of water. Now remember, the cones are medium size, and they weigh approximately 1 gram. If you take some all big ones like this one or some of the big giant ones from Vista, they're going to weigh more than 1 gram. But going on average, a medium-sized cone, we go by 1 gram, so 2 to 3 grams maximum to make your first hops tea. You can throw more in there later and try different recipes, but if you want to really just get the hops flavor, the little bit of bitterness and some of the aromas and not overpower the tea with hops, go with 2 or 3 cones, medium size, okay? So we're going to mix our ingredients and put them in our vase. In this case, we typically make 4 cups of water or 1,000 milliliters, 1 liter, and we will have this ready to drink, nice chilled, tomorrow. Ta-da! The final product, after at least 8 hours, I usually try to leave it overnight, our hops infused tea. So, without further ado, let's do a taste test. We have our vase with ice and a strainer. And we're going to strain our tea, give it a little stir, and pour it into our cup, well, our glass. A little dry hop on top. Ready. So you can taste the tea, obviously, and even the lemon and the ginger, but not so strong. But there's definitely a little bit of bitterness, and the aromas, the citric, maybe a little bit orangey from the hops, and it gives you a remembrance of beer without the malt, for sure. It's definitely not straight tea, but man, it's excellent on a sunny day, hot sunny day, or any day of the week without sugar. You could put a little honey in there if you want to sweeten it up, but I recommend it as is. If you sip it, these cones will start letting some of the aromas seep into the tea, or even a little more. Cheers to life. Yummy. So before I get started, I'm going to explain the difference between using fresh cone wet hops as opposed to dry cones or pellets. If you're using dry cones or pellets, you have to divide the amount of cones or the weight by 4. Divide down 75%. So in our case, we had 4 cups of water and 3 cones each, or 3 grams each, which would be 12 grams of hops for 4 cups of water. In the case we're using dry cones or pellets, we would use only 3 grams of hops. Okay? So always divide by 4 when you're using dry cones or pellets. So I hope you really liked our tip this week. I really enjoyed it. I probably made 15 batches of tea, hot tea, cold tea, all kinds of tests, some really terrible tea. It really reminds me of when I first started making beer, okay? But you always got to test it all, at least. But I think I came up with a nice light recipe that's drinkable and still has a light flavor of the hops, a little bit of reminder of beer without the malt. But I want you guys to experiment, please, and write in the comments below your results. If you liked our tip this week, put a thumbs up. We're going to do a tip on how to make hot tea shortly. And don't forget our happy hour at Hop World every Friday, 5 o'clock Eastern Time. Thanks for being with me, friends. Time to enjoy my sun tea, freshly hopped, and with one special ingredient. Cheers to life.